We have breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. Nothing happened. I mean, we got Leger Douzable and Pete Prisco here. These are our tagged analysts at HQ. Only 2 tagged players in the NFL, but we knew this going into the day.
Correct.
T. Higgins of the Bengals, Trey Smith of the Kansas City Chiefs. That means Sam Darnold was not tagged by the Vikings, Leger.
Yeah, surprising. We talked about this earlier, Has. I thought the Minnesota Vikings should have potentially tagged him because J.J. McCarthy's coming off a knee injury, missed his entire rookie season. Why not bring some of that synergy back after winning 14 games with Sam Darnold? Now he's most likely going to hit the open market.
Well, there's also still a chance he could go back to Minnesota and re-sign with them. And the cap would have been a problem if they tagged him. I get it. But why not work out a deal where you tag him and trade him and get something back for him? You don't know if you're going to get a compensatory pick back for him, depending on the formula, how many guys you would lose or get back you sign in free agency. So they could have tagged him, kept it at $40 million, and then, you know, tried to work out a deal with him, or worked out a deal and then traded him right that way.
The interesting thing about this, Pete, Kwesi Mensah, the GM, like a lot of times GMs have affinity for their draft picks. I wonder if that played a role in this.
He hasn't, because he's traded them all to go move around on the draft board. He doesn't have many. He
took a quarterback last year in the first round.
But he traded up. Oh, from that standpoint.
That's what I'm saying.
They traded up to go get him, and then they traded up. He doesn't have a lot of draft picks, which makes sense to try and tag him and trade him and get more draft.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I wonder, in regards to them maybe not tagging him to keep him for a year, had something to do with J.J. McCarthy and them trading up a couple picks with the Jets, one spot to flop to move up to get J.J. McCarthy. I would just say buyer beware, right? Because you saw what you had with Sam Darnold last year. It's been a year and a half since Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson have had the synergy that they had with Sam Darnold. You could potentially be giving them a new quarterback again in J.J. McCarthy this year. So that would be 3 years in a row they would have a third starting quarterback. Again, when you talk about sustained success, a lot of that has to do with camaraderie, building that rapport with your receivers. Now it looks like, depending on if they're able to not work out a deal with Sam Darnold, that they're going to be starting anew with a new quarterback.
Here's what they had to do. I mean, in talking to people around the Vikings, when J.J. McCarthy was close to winning that job.
That's what I heard, yeah.
I mean, he's close to winning the job, so they clearly think that he is right there with him. The other side of the equation is Sam Darnold a $40 million a year quarterback? You know, somebody might pay him.
What the market say you are.
I get it, but do you think he's a $40 million quarterback? Do you think Sam Darnold, what we saw last year, including the last 2 games?
You can say that about a lot of quarterbacks.
I was going to say that. So is Dak Prescott a $60 million quarterback?
Probably not.
That's what I'm saying. You are what the market says you are.
But you are. Do you think, would you pay him $40 million a year?
It's better than paying him $60 million a year.
Or it's better to not pay him anything and move on. I mean, before the season, it would have been lunacy to say you're giving Sam Darnold $40 million.
But he played, and he played well, and he deserves to get paid.
But in the big moments, he didn't play well. When it came time at the end, if Sam Darnold plays well in the final 2 games of the season, are the Vikings keeping him?
They're tagging him for sure, probably.
Yeah.
All right, so Sam Darnold does not join the list of tagged players in the NFL. It's just a measly list of 2, T. Higgins and Trey Smith. Let's bring in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, who tweeted about 30 minutes before the deadline that this thing was not going to happen for Sam Darnold and the Vikings. He was not going to get that tag. What are you hearing out of Minnesota, JJ?
So they do want to keep Sam Darnold. They want to try to figure out what that could look like. But what Sam Darnold wants, what the Minnesota Vikings want, well, those could potentially be 2 separate things. Let's first of all consider J.J. McCarthy, the first-round pick who had the meniscus surgery and then had that second procedure that some of us don't really exactly know what went on. The Minnesota Vikings are privy to all of his medical information, so they know where he is right now. And what's going to be really interesting for all of us to watch is over these next 8 days, 9, 10 days, whether the Vikings go after one of these veteran quarterbacks. That could be a Sam Darnold, right? Or that could be a Daniel Jones. Remember, of course, that they signed him, had him on the practice squad, brought him up. We're all anticipating that he's going to sign somewhere else, right? And that could be a Cleveland, that could be a Pittsburgh, or that could be Indianapolis, according to my sources. But is it a possibility that if Sam Darnold signs wherever, and you could argue what he's worth, what he's not worth, if it's $30 million a year, $35 million a year, or even $40, and I would think that it would be hard to believe he'd get 40 if the Vikings don't tag him at 40. Whether that's with the Raiders, it will not be with the Giants. I can go ahead and tell you that right now. That maybe it would be a Daniel Jones there. Or, again, if the Vikings don't do anything in the first wave of free agency, perhaps they are signaling to us all that they are ready to move forward with J.J. McCarthy as their Week 1 starter.
JJ, you said it wouldn't be the Giants. Where are you hearing about that? Because we know they missed out on getting Matthew Stafford, so you would think that maybe because this regime is probably on their last leg, they have to go get a veteran-type quarterback. But you believe Sam Darnold's not going to be in the running for the Giants job?
I don't think so. What I was hearing last week is that that was not a name that the Giants necessarily were spending a great deal of time on. Now, last week was Indianapolis. Last week was when they were putting a whole lot of eggs into the Matthew Stafford basket. And last week is when it wound up not working out for the Giants and getting Matthew Stafford. But I would also say this in hearing from someone close to Sam Darnold, that he wasn't all that enthused about going back to the New York market. I don't think any of us have to reach far back into our minds to remember how his tenure with the New York Jets went. And so because of that, that has not been considered a legitimate destination for Sam Darnold. One, the interest from the Giants, and two, the interest from the player, and that is why I do not see that being a potential union.
All right, so only 2 players tagged. T. Higgins, the biggest name, tagged by the Cincinnati Bengals, who are still hoping to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback, but he wants a lot more, according to JJ, than what they're willing to spend. And, of course, Trey Hendrickson as well. So how do the Bengals navigate the situation from here with free agency now a little more than a week away?
Yeah, the Bengals may have to come up on their offer. I think one of the potential misnomers, missteps maybe that the Bengals have done, they went to Indianapolis and were ready and said multiple times over, we're prepared to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Well, right at that moment, it was Justin Jefferson at $35 million in average annual value. There's a deal that's on the table that's more than $36 million in average annual value. Jamar Chase, as I understand it, wants more than $40 million in average annual value. What happens when the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history becomes, let's say, Micah Parsons? And that number gets up to 38. Like, as the numbers go up, as long as you want to give him that title, that number could increase. And so right now it does not appear that Jamar Chase and the Cincinnati Bengals are particularly close, certainly not in terms of money. That's the first domino that needs to fall. Then the second would be T. Higgins. Remember, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have the same representation. So you're going to know one hand and the other hand. So because of that, that domino then has to fall. And then lastly, Trey Hendrickson. He probably wants to see where Micah Parsons winds up to see what the top of the market ultimately will be to help him determine what his number should be. So I don't know that the Bengals, they have these big ideas, these big plans. They want to get these guys taken care of. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon.
All right, that's Jonathan Jones, our lead NFL insider, who's been with us all day here as the tag deadline comes and goes in the NFL. It is now time for Pete Prisco's favorite segment. He came up with it, actually, many decades ago.
Oh, started it, like the power rankings.
And losers. Yeah, winners and losers came shortly after power rankings.
Correct.
Not quite as popular, but here we go. I mean, there's only 2 teams that tagged a player.
Yeah.
Who's your winner, Pete?
My winner is the Cincinnati Bengals because they were able to tag T. Higgins. And I think when you look at the way they play, the dynamic of the offense changes when Higgins is on the field. And it's a different team. Yes, Chase is number 1, but when you have Higgins to kind of balance the field a little bit, it makes it so much tougher to defend them. So I think by tagging him, and they're going to try and work out a long-term deal with him, I think it's the best move for Joe Burrow in that offense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. We just heard JJ say that Jamar Chase has got to be the first bucket that drops in the hat, and then it'll be T. Higgins after that, and then Trey Hendrickson is going to want a deal. My winner for today is Trey Smith, and it's because he got the franchise tag. And we know this, Pete, the guards and tackles are grouped together. So that means he's going to make $23.4 million. You know what the top guards are getting paid right now, Pete? upwards of $21 million. So he's going to get more money than the top guards in all of football. And you would assume the Kansas City Chiefs don't want him to go into the season with that high of a number as a cap hit, which means the player gets all the leverage in negotiation. Now, they have the best interior three in all of football, and each one of them are making upwards to $16 million. So it's a very expensive interior three. But Trey Smith, because he got the franchise tag, is going to have the leverage in negotiation, because if he had hit the open market, he probably was going to get upwards to $21 million. Now that number is pushing 23.4, and the Chiefs are not going to want him to have that high of a cap number.
But they did tag L'Jarius Sneed last year and trade him.
They did. So you think that's a possibility still?
They've done. If the number gets crazy, then it's definitely a possibility.
2 tags, 2 winners. Where are you going with a loser, Pete?
It's hard to find a loser. For me, it really is.
To me, it's T. Higgins, right? Because if he had hit the open market,
the Bengals are the winner.
The Bengals
tagging
gotcha.
So that's why it makes sense, right? Because they're the winner for keeping him and tagging him. But to me, it's a loser because he got tagged and he wasn't able to hit the open market, because he would have saw upwards to $30 million on the open market. There would have been teams that probably would have gave him a blank check, because they're looking for a true #1 receiver. Now he's tagged at $26.5 million. If you're T. Higgins, you're mad, because it's like, if I hit the open market, Pete, I'm definitely passing that number of $26.5 million. And not only that, Pete, I have to wait for the other receiver to get paid before I get my money, where just in a couple of days I was about to hit free agency, hit the open market, and get whatever I wanted. So to me, T. Higgins is a loser when it comes to the franchise tag.
See, as of right now, I would say that the Minnesota Vikings are a loser, in large part because they didn't tag Sam Darnold. Now, how it plays out could change the way I feel about that. If he comes back and re-signs on a lesser deal, they're big winners.
Yep.
If he leaves without any compensation whatsoever, then it's all on J.J. McCarthy, then I think they could end up being big losers. So, but as of right now, I'm going to say they're the losers, because they could have ensured the fact that they could get something back for him if they were to trade him, or they would make sure that he's back as the quarterback. So right now, I'd say the Minnesota Vikings. $40 million too much for Sam Darnold? In my mind, it is, but you could have worked something out, lessen that number, take the cap off him, the tag off of him, and try to get him a long-term contract.
To your point, if you're a team that needs a quarterback, this is not one of the better times to be looking for one when you combine Pete's top free agent quarterbacks. I mean, look, Justin Fields, Jameis Winston is ranked #3 on there. And then Ryan Wilson's quarterback rankings, and how many of those guys do we believe are going to be franchise quarterbacks?
It's not a good time to need a quarterback.
It's tough.
It really is not.
Yeah.
That group right there, there is not one guy there in the entire side, either side. Take Rodgers out of the equation because of age, but that you could say he's going to be a franchise quarterback. Not one, in my mind. Not one.
I believe in Cam Moore, but to Pete's point, like, you don't know until you know, until a guy gets on the field. So when you look at the unrestricted free agents on that list, you talked about it. Jameis Winston, he got benched last year, and he's the #3 guy on that list. So that kind of lets you know, and it's not taking a shot at Jameis Winston, but that kind of lets you know where the free agency class is. The man asked to be delivered from pick sixes, all right? He asked to be delivered from pick sixes, and he wasn't delivered.
You know what you get with Jameis? You're getting a lot of good, you get a lot of crap.
Correct.
I mean, that's just what you get from him. It's fun. It's a fun ride, but that's what you get with Jameis
30
Winston.
for 30. What do we get with Pete Prisco? We get him in studio every single day this offseason. Written his new contract.
I love it.
We are your place for NFL news, highlights, scores, breaking news all the time. It's all right here on HQ.